Hi, welcome to another edition of the Webby University, sponsored by our partner at Vitamin T. My name is David-Michel Davies. I'm the Executive Director of the Webby Awards. I'm really excited to have the opportunity today to share a trend with you, something that we've been following and that we're interested in at the Webby Awards, something we're calling staying in to go out. I'll get into that in a second, but I thought before I do I should tell you a little bit more about the Webbies, in case you're sort of just finding out about us. Our aim is to honor outstanding achievement on the internet. We really try and do that across all the different types of sites and content and apps and ads and everything that's going on online. So you can see here on a couple of the slides, the Webbies is judged by the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. That's a 1,000 person member organization with members in more than 30 countries. We look at about 10,000 entries each year. And those come from 60 countries, so it's truly a truly global award. Looking at a few of the things and the different types of categories and what we honor, we break them into four main high-level categories. We look at websites. Those are the things that the Webby Awards have been honoring, where we started honoring the internet for the last 16 years. We also look at interactive advertising media. That's all different types of advertising that take place on the internet. It could be advertising in apps, it could be integrated campaigns across lots of platforms, it could be banners, microsites. We also look at online film and video. So those are videos that were created for or specifically premiered online. So while we love television as much as the next person, it's not for shows that were originally on TV and then put up on the web, but rather for shows that were specifically created to be viewed for the first time on the web. And then finally, we look at mobile and apps. Not surprising, I think we came close to doubling the amount of entries we received in the mobile and apps categories last year. We'll probably do something similar again this year. Obviously, a big part of where innovation is heading on the internet. And as we are sort of traveling around and visiting great internet companies and agencies and brands and finding out about what they're working on, apps is really sort of one of the first things they talk about. We also produce a few other events and festivals, one of them most notably Internet Week in New York, which we started 5 years ago. We also produced an Internet Week festival in Europe. This just happened a couple weeks ago in London. And then also Netted, which is a daily email, which I encourage you to sign up for at netted.net. Finally, as we get in here, if you're interested in entering the Webby Awards this year, our deadline is coming up December 16th. You can enter in any of those categories I just showed you and many, many more. All right, so let's get into the trend. One of the things that we're really interested in at the Webbies is not so much not just what technologists and software designers and web designers are doing, but also what people are doing and how they're actually using the technology, using the web, using the internet, using all the different services available to them. And what we find actually is that many times a lot of the innovation in this space comes from what users actually do. And some of the most successful designers, software creators, technologists are the ones who actually pay attention to how users are using their technology and try and build things around that. So here's a good example. We wanted to sort of honor this and explore this idea this year through our Call for Entries campaign, and so to have a little fun with it as well. We assembled essentially popular technology items through time. You can see them up here. And sort of looked at how people actually use them or what meaning they had to them in certain years. So here's a great example. Cassette tape in in the 1980s. We looked at this, we called this the love note. Essentially, if you remember, if you were a kid like I was, you're 14 years old at this time, what did you use a cassette tape for? You made mixtapes and gave it to your boyfriend or girlfriend, hopefully not on the first date, but on the second date, you don't want to scare them away. And so that was really a big part of the meaning of a cassette tape in the 80s. Here's another one, the record player, which if you were a dad in 1981 might look like a satanic language translator if your kid was listening to a lot of Ozzy Osbourne or Kiss. So we're trying to have fun with this concept here, but it's really just to show you that at the end of the day, the way people use these technologies, whatever they may be, actually has quite a big effect on what their meaning is in the world. All right, so let's jump into this trend. We're calling it staying in to go out, and it's basically how people are using their computers. Back to that idea, how are people using technology? It's how people are using their computers to transcend space and essentially to do things that they used to do out in the world, but from the privacy or the comfort of their desk or couch or whatever it might be. So the way this, we have this sort of staggered in three sections. Essentially, we're looking at hashtags, and that's essentially going to show you how people basically created this trend and this innovation, and how they're trying to figure out ways how to use the internet to get together online, largely through hashtags. I'm going to show you some startups who recognize that this is going on and are actually building experience around some of similar concepts. And then finally, a couple platforms, mainly Google Hangouts and Skype, that are enabling everybody to do this in a very easy way, and also allowing some brands and some companies to sort of plug in and try this stuff too. So let's get into it. So this all, I sort of personally started becoming more interested in this, or I was really paying attention to this earlier this year during President Obama's State of the Union address. Now everybody knows with the State of the Union, it's on every channel. If you go out, it's on all the TVs. You sort of end up watching it, even if it's not necessarily something that you're passionate about watching. But this year, for me, it got a lot more exciting. And the reason was because I was at home on my couch, as we all tend to do now. I was sort of doing that two-screen experience. I was fiddling around with emails and stuff on my laptop while watching it on the television. And I started following, I saw this hashtag pop up called SOTU on Twitter, State of the Union. And so I wonder what people are saying about the State of the Union. So here are some examples. This is a friend of mine. He says, Biden's gavel is freaking me out. Wood is too white. Stain that Okyo. And it's a reference to our vice president's gavel, which you can see there is rather white. The second one that came up was, what makes America great? A black president, a white vice president, and an orange speaker. I don't know if you all remember this, but this year, for whatever reason, our speaker, Boehner, was a little bit orange on screen. Unclear what the sort of reason for that was. Maybe it was just the television, but that certainly drew a lot of comments. Here's another one about that from The Onion. If you have an HD TV, we recommend turning up your saturation values 15% to compensate for Boehner. Like I said, lots of discussion about our speaker's orange face. And then finally, here's another friend of mine talking about John Boehner's glassware budget needing cuts. You can see the speaker tends to have a lot of glasses there in front of him for one reason or another. I show sort of the funny examples here because it's fun to laugh at and sort of look at, and it is a big part, the comedy element is a big part of this experience. But there was also lots of very informative examples as well, right? There was people submitting links that were contradicting and supporting what the president was saying, blog posts, links to fact sites, all sorts of things. So it was actually a pretty robust discussion, and it certainly made my personal experience of watching the State of the Union more enjoyable, funnier, of course, with some of these funny comments, but also more educational. I feel like I learned a lot more. So that's sort of where we are sort of started thinking about this, or one of the areas we're thinking about it. So I'm going to start showing you how people actually are using hashtags to do some of the same thing, how they're using hashtags to get together in real time. So the first example here I have is this past year when Beyonce at the MTV Music Awards announced that she was having a baby. And so until Steve Jobs passed away a few months later, this was actually the most tweeted about topic ever on Twitter. It generated the most amount of tweets per second, or TPSs as they like to call them. And one of the reasons is because even people who weren't watching the MTV Music Awards noticed a hashtag that started popping up about Beyonce's baby, and so they started weighing in and talking about, whether it was Jay-Z's baby and if it would be as handsome as Jay-Z and all the things that people are interested, I guess, in relation to Beyonce's baby. And it was all generated, all conversation is generated by hashtags. And to remind you that hashtags aren't something that technology companies created. Hashtags are something that people created as a way to better use Twitter and better use social spaces to organize their conversations and their thoughts and to actually connect with each other. So totally people invented technology. Here's another way people have been using hashtags for quite some time. They've been using them to have chats and to have online chats on Twitter and in other places. And so what you see here on the screen is actually a document that was a Google Doc that was put together by somebody of all the chats going on Twitter, all these Twitter chats. And I'm only showing you a section of the B's. So there's 25 other letters of the alphabet that you're not even seeing here, just to give you a sense of how many chats there are. If you don't know how this works, we can take a look at I think there's a Bali Central chat here for people interested in the business of Bollywood or wanting to talk to Bollywood celebrities. And if they want to do that, what they can do is they can tune in from 9 to 10 a.m. India Standard Time using this hashtag on Twitter, and they will, if they search that hashtag, they will find themselves in a conversation of people interested in Bollywood and sometimes talking to actual Bollywood celebrities. And there's so many others. There's a blog chat, there's a book chat, there's a blacklit chat, there's a boom chat. We haven't checked out the boom chat yet. I'm not quite sure what that's about, but lots and lots of different kinds of chats. And again, totally people invented the hashtags, people invented this way of using them, and people, not companies, invented this document to actually even find out where they all are. So really interesting. Another great example of hashtags is a site that came up right around the hurricane this past year, Irene, It was called Instacane, and this is essentially somebody wrote a little program that sucked up all the photos off of Instagram that were tagged with the hashtag Irene. And so this isn't, in some sense, isn't a way that people created conversation, but in a way that some person used a hashtag in order to organize and to pull all the photos that were around a certain type of event and really give people who were interested in a first-hand look of what was happening during the hurricane a very easy way to do so. So really fascinating use here, I think. Okay, so let's look at some startups. So some startups have started recognizing and seeing how people are really interested in getting together, sometimes around live events, around watching television together, around events, sort of hurricane and earthquake types events, all different sorts of ways. And they're actually building experiences to make that easier, to sort of make that hashtag technology a little bit more robust. So here's one we'll start with, back to that watching TV with your friends. In this case, it's a company called Chill, and they're building a platform to allow you to watch online shows and to watch all sorts of different video content with people and talk about it. So here's they did this example for TechCrunch, which is a conference happening in California a few months ago, and they built this TechCrunch Disrupt Lounge. And so what you see here is in the slide, it's a screenshot, they pull in the live stream feed of the actual conference. You can log in using Facebook or Twitter or whatever it might be. You get in there and you have your avatar, and you can watch the conference and chat with other people about what you're seeing. And so you can see how eventually this will morph into, or could morph into, there being advertising in the space, potentially you and your friends having your own private lounge where you can watch certain types of content and talk about that privately. But essentially they're trying to bring together that two-screen experience that I described earlier, where I was watching the State of the Union using my laptop to browse Twitter and the TV to watch it, bring that into one media experience. So I think it's pretty interesting. The second one here, same concept, but instead of around watching videos, this is around listening to music, right? And so how do people listen to music, or what do they do with their friends? They often play music for their friends. They buy new CDs, they take them over to their friends, they play them, they talk about them, what do they like, what they don't like. Turntable FM does the same thing, but directly online. It gives you the ability to do this sort of same normal real-world activity from your computer. So you go to the site, you log in, you find all sorts of different types of rooms. Some are organized around groups of people. At the Webby Awards, sometimes we have a Webby room in Turntable FM, which is just a bunch of people at our office playing music for each other. Sometimes in this case, it's organized around a major event. So this is an earthquake. Somebody here, it's in the earthquake recovery room. Somebody here thinks it's pretty funny that they're playing you can hear the earth, you can feel the earth move by Carole King. It is kind of funny, actually. And then also obviously around types of music, we see like rooms around, French disco and dub and all those different types of music too. And what you do in here is you go and you listen to music and you play music, you talk to people about it, and you're all listening to the same music in real time. You can vote people on or off as being a DJ, you can become a DJ, all the sort of same things that we normally do with our friends when we want to listen to music. Okay, here's another one. We can kind of go through this one a little bit more quickly because it's easier. It's a pretty quick one to grasp. But this is essentially transforming Facebook into a bar. It's an app for Facebook called Shaker. It's a Shaker app, and you can see you log in here and you get your avatar and you walk around the bar and have the photo of you sort of following you around. And I guess you do what people do in bars. They make inappropriate, awkward advances at others, and I guess sometimes feel bad about it the next day. But anyway, very simple concept. But again, just transforming and taking what people do in real life. They go to bars and figuring out a way to enable them to do that in a sort of more rich experience online. Okay, so now we're seeing there's actually a bunch of platforms which are allowing people and brands to plug in and sort of get this better media experience, this sort of hyper hashtag experience, really with just a few clicks. So I'm going to start off focusing on some Google Hangout examples. If you don't know what Google Hangouts is, it's a feature of Google+, which is Google's new social service that they launched earlier this summer. And what it does allow you, I think, to invite up to, 9 or 10 friends into like essentially a real-time video chat. And it's pretty cool, and it's Google, so the tech is pretty good. It's actually very good. You can play YouTube videos for each other, you can talk to each other, you can share things with each other, so it's a pretty rich experience. So this guy, Lee Allison, is actually using this platform to have a cooking school. Sounds a little crazy, but he is. And what he does is essentially, if you want to be part of his cooking school, he'll send you the recipe ahead of time. You go pick up the ingredients, you bring them home, pop up your laptop open, on your kitchen counter, I guess. And let's say from Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, he's going to teach you how to make I'm just making this up, coq au vin as an example. And you can see all the people who are also taking the class, and you can chat with them, and all the sort of same things you'd normally do at a cooking class. Here's another great example of use of the Hangouts. Here is Daria Musk. She's an independent musician. She's actually having little mini gig casts, she's calling them, or concerts for some of her best fans. And she invites them, I think they're 3 to 5 song sets, and she plays music for them and talks to them, and the same thing that she would sort of normally do at a really small show. This is a pretty cool example too. So people go to whiskey tastings a lot, and what do? They taste whiskey. So White and McKay, a big whiskey company, not a big whiskey company, a whiskey company, excuse me, out of the UK, is having whiskey tastings in Google Hangouts. And so what they do is they, send the customers the samples of the whiskey. The people come at a certain time, and then there's the master whiskey sommelier, and he, talks to you about the whiskey. How does it smell? How is it aged? All the same things we do at a normal whiskey tasting, but instead you're doing it from the privacy of your home or at your computer. Downside of this, I think, is that unlike at a whiskey tasting when it's all over, you're sort of hanging out with a lot of people. Here, you're at home, I guess, partially inebriated by yourself, which is, I guess, a little bit of a downer, but maybe you can invite friends over to do this with you. This is another example. This one in this case is using Skype, and Skype provides some similar services that Google Hangouts does, just in a different platform. It's a multi-session video conference platform. And so in this case, More Magazine has something they call a Skype book club, and they invite an author to give readings. And so many authors, when they release a new book, they'll go to a book club, or they'll go to a bookstore and they'll give a reading of the book. But in this case, they actually just invite them to this video conference session, and they invite all these other book clubs, and they give a reading to, say, 10 or 9 or 10 book clubs. So in this case, you can see actually in the slide here, there's literally potentially 100 people participating in this session. So really interesting use of Skype to sort of reach out to more people, for book clubs to be able to connect with an author directly without actually have to be being with them. Then finally, you can always sort of see when this stuff is taking off, when you start to get this additional information layer, sites that are trying to organize and help you find these different Hangouts and sessions. And in this case, this is a site that was launched recently called GP Hangouts, which lists all the different Hangouts happening on Google Plus and sort of what they're about and when they are, and so you can look at that. Finally, you could tell how this sort of fits into what Facebook announced about a month, 6 weeks ago at this point, where they're allowing people to hook up their Netflix or their Spotify accounts so that people can see in real time what their friends are watching or listening to. I imagine at some point we'll probably be able to watch in real time what our friends are watching too, not just find out about it. So very similar. So that's something we think is really interesting. How people are using their computers, using the internet to go out but still staying in. And we really think this is a trend that started with people using hashtags, inventing this. How can they connect over the internet in ways that they used to connect in real space? And then we see these really interesting examples of startups and some platforms that are sort of making that experience more rich and giving more people access to it. One of the things I really love about this is how people are using their online identities to actually log into these services, and it really boosts the quality of content. You might think back to something like chat roulette, where it's anonymous and you tend to get a lot of, we'll say sometimes questionable content or behavior. But when you're using your actual Facebook ID or your actual Google Plus ID, your actual Twitter ID, we see a lot less of that. So it's really interesting. All right, so that's Staying In to Go Out. I hope you enjoyed it. I do want to remind you again, if you are making great internet work, that our deadline at the Webbies is December 16th. And finally, just to thank you and thank our sponsor Vitamin T for supporting the Webby University. I hope you've enjoyed it. Our info is up here. We'd love to hear what you think, and if you have examples out there that you've seen that you'd like to share with us, please send them. So thank you very much.